good. All
Yeah, I
right,
think
cool.
over the course of this year, they've had lots of different community organizations come in and do presentations about what resources are available, and they've sort of had some time to talk about how it impacts youth and our community. And they're going to be taking all of their learning and compiling it for a city council report on the 16th.
Wow.
So you're the final presenter, and then we'll organize our presentation and present sort of on what they learned this year and sort of any sort of recommendations that they may have for council to hear. So.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so privileged to be here. I mean, that's such a great opportunity for them. And are they all, I mean, I guess I'll ask them once they get here. I want to learn more about them and what they
Absolutely.
do and all of that. So I'm just really excited. That is so awesome. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, we have about 8 members on the current youth council. Some of them will be rolling off because some of them are seniors. And we'll have some new members on that start in the fall.
Gotcha.
Yes, we
That
will
is
do
amazing.
introductions and they can share a little bit about themselves.
Yeah, all the things. That's so exciting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
Yeah, I'll try to get some. Didn't have like an official PowerPoint, but I'll just pull up some that might be helpful for visuals.
Sure. So Nicole, when's your last day of school?
My last day, I think, is in 3 weeks.
Okay, counting down.
Yep.
And you'll be in the 10th grade next year?
Yep.
Nice. Welcome, Harrison.
Hello.
How's your day been?
It's been pretty okay. How's yours been?
I'd say pretty okay. Yeah, pretty okay. Busy. Harrison, what's going to happen after graduation this year? Are you headed anywhere in the fall?
I am going to WashU in St. Louis in the fall. So that's my plan.
Okay, nice. It's quite a drive.
Yes, it is a long way.
Yeah. Wait just a few more minutes. We usually have some others join. I know folks also have like extracurriculars that sometimes conflict with this time with sports and things like that. So we'll just see who's able to make it. I know some folks are doing baseball and tennis, and so we'll see who's able to make it.
Yeah, I was at CHS today and I didn't realize they had prom this weekend. I was like, wait, didn't you already have prom? Turns out that was last year. And so I just feel like there has been so much going on, yet I thought last year was this year. And it was just crazy to me that prom is around the corner. So insane. Is this recorded or just live for like open, like people to come and join?
I think it's just live.
Gotcha. Cool.
Remy, is that
Also
accurate?
streamed live on our city's channels, and we do have a recording on our Boxcast channel for.
Oh gosh. All right, cool.
Youth
Good to
Council
know.
is pretty legit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No pressure.
That's
That's really awesome. Well, and while we're waiting, if it's okay, Nicole and Harrison, I had a question for you because I've honestly haven't heard of the youth council for the city at all. And so when I heard that it existed, I got so excited. And Ms. Graves was just telling me a little bit about what you all do and the end project and presentation y'all will be developing. And so I just want to hear from y'all like more about what you do and why you are interested, and yeah, what's been going on with the youth council and what that means, if you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, I can start. And then, so I first joined youth council, or I heard about it from my brother, who was, I guess, graduating as a senior when I was at the end of my 7th grade. So that's when I joined. And I just kind of like joined because I heard about it from him and I thought it would be a really interesting thing to do throughout high school. And then throughout basically every year, we can research or like discuss any topic that we choose that we kind of think is either an issue or something that should change or should happen within the city. And that it's something that we could present to the school board or to the city council that typically we would give solutions to as well. And then that's basically it.
That is basically it. Oh, so humble, because that sounds like such a big deal. That's amazing. What about you, Nicole? Is there anything else? I want to hear your perspective too, if you have anything.
Well, I heard about youth council from a friend of mine, and this is my first year joining, so I'm still like exploring all the areas, but I think Harrison put it really nicely.
That is so cool. Oh, are you
Last
guys
year
allowed?
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Last year, what happened?
Last year, the project that they chose to research was this idea of middle school flight. So folks that choose to go to private schools for their middle school years and then return to high school afterwards, and sort of the reasons behind that and some of the context around that, and then sort of the impact that may have on individuals and youth. And so they also had some recommendations as well. So that was a neat project for last year as well.
That is so cool. Well, and I appreciate you sharing that, because what I was gonna ask next, if you're allowed to tell me if y'all are thinking of anything now, like what's been percolating as far as some issues, or if now isn't an appropriate time, I'd love to just connect and hear more, because that's just so amazing. Like, that's so cool what you guys do. So, and thank you for what y'all do, because that's just so important. And one of the reasons why I love my job is empowering youth to use their voice and having them notice and realize how much power you all actually have. So yeah, maybe we can save that for another time, but I'd love to hear more about it and connect more. And yeah, thank y'all so much for the work that y'all do. So
well, I think, Jada, what we could do is just go ahead and start with your presentation, and I'm gonna take some notes while you're speaking, and I'll make sure I sort of report out minutes and notes from the meeting so that the folks that aren't here can get a little piece of it as well.
That sounds great. I will say that I didn't develop like a specific presentation slide for this. More so because I do prefer to be more conversational, but also there's been pretty much the same presentation developed 4 different ways. So I'm just gonna pull up slides as they become relevant. But first, thank you all so much for having me here. When Mr. Faley reached out to me, I was just so grateful to be presented with the opportunity. My name's Jada, she, her, and I work at the Sexual Assault Resource Agency on the prevention team as the bystander empowerment specialist. Now, although I do have that very long official name, we as a team really work together to where a lot of our stuff overlaps and ultimately has the same goal of ensuring that people feel emotionally and physically safe in their communities, however they define what a community is. So whether that's at home, at school, in restaurants, sometimes even like religious institutions or just, you know, academic institutions, but just ensuring that they feel emotionally and physically safe in order to reduce harm and ultimately prevent harm from happening ever again. That's really the long-term goal, is to just eradicate all of the violence that happens. So as you can imagine, when I say that, that is a pretty lofty goal to have. That obviously doesn't happen within a certain period of time, let alone a specific length of time. But that's also sort of why I love my job so much, because it incorporates so much active listening, seeing what people are seeing as their needs. What do they need to feel safe? What do they think, you know, needs to happen for them or their friends or their families to feel safe? And it's just so cool to see what comes out of those interactions and what comes out of those discussions and how we can best support our community to ensure that prevention is actually taking place. So the first thing that I really want to dive into is just what the Sexual Assault Resource Agency is and the different components of our agency. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Oh, do you mind enabling me to share my screen? Whoever has the ability to do so.
You should be good to go now.
Awesome, thank you. Cool, so this is just a little diagram showing only 2 out of the 3 really 4-ish areas of the agency. So the Sexual Assault Resource Agency, our website is sarahseville.org. We also have a office line and a hotline, which should have had that on hand, but I do not. Our hotline number is 434-977-7273. And our hotline is available 25/8. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the outreach section. But for us as an agency, we serve the Charlottesville community and the surrounding counties. So that includes Nelson County, Louisa County, Greene County, Albemarle, and also, you know, I think there's 1 or 2 counties that I'm missing. Unfortunately, I'm not from here, so I always forget a couple. But the surrounding rural counties, and then of course, Charlottesville. Something that people I feel like need to remember is that Charlottesville is also comprised of not just the families and the students here, but also UVA students, UVA staff, UVA faculty. So just to be clear, it's literally anybody within that service area we serve. Our mission is to serve primary and secondary survivors. And what I mean by that is a primary survivor is someone who has been directly impacted by sexual violence. And I explicitly use and intentionally use the word sexual violence because that doesn't necessarily have to mean sexual assault, right? That could mean stalking in some ways. Sometimes there's an overlap with us in the shelter for help and emergency, depending on the circumstancing of a stalking situation. Sexual harassment, right? If there's a policy that like sexualizes like women or sexualizes a person in any way, right? Those are all under that category of sexual violence. And a primary survivor is someone directly impacted, which means that violence happened to them directly, which I know that's sort of kind of switching the words around a little bit, but that means that I was actually harmed by this happening. Someone did something to me. Whereas in comparison, a secondary survivor is someone who although maybe I wasn't actually directly harmed, maybe it was my best friend that was actually harmed by this, right? And I don't know how to handle it. That's a really tricky and scary situation, depending on who you are, how much knowledge you have, what resources you may know or don't know. If you're a teen and don't know if you need to go to an adult or not, it gets scary. And so secondary survivors are the people who, although they weren't directly impacted, they're still impacted in some way. So whether it's your best friend, maybe it's your favorite teacher and they don't know what to do, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a babysitter, it could be anybody, right? That is impacted by this thing happening to another person. And so to be very clear, those are the people that we serve. We do not serve perpetrators of violence, because we are very client focused and want to make sure that, we always believe survivors, we always make sure that we put them first. And so to not be contradictory to that, we do not serve perpetrators, but there are resources out there for perpetration and for perpetrators themselves. So I mentioned this because it's important as background information for when I dive into our departments. First things first is direct services, right? The services that you immediately think of when you think of, help or resources for when sexual violence happens. So therapy and advocacy. Therapy is exactly what it is, right? Therapy, having somebody to talk to, having a therapist there, someone consistent, right? That's someone it's not just a walk-in appointment, but it's someone that you're consistently seeing for however long that you need to. So whether that's a couple days, whether that's a couple years, right? It doesn't matter. That therapist is there for you and you're healing specific in the realm of sexual violence. Advocacy is a little bit different. Advocacy means, hey, you've been hurt. We want to support you in your healing process. What does that look like? Do you want therapy? Do you want group support? If so, what group support do you need? Do you need help because maybe you're leaving your partner who was the perpetrator of this violence and causing the harm? Maybe you need financial resources, right? Maybe you need to get connected to a legal advocate, because that's one thing that we don't do. We don't offer legal advice. We don't offer legal services. But the whole point of that advocate is to ensure that you don't feel alone in this, and that whatever your experience is, there is someone that you can talk to, and they will connect you to a resource that is most suitable to your needs and your accessibility. And they're with you throughout the entirety of the way, right? So it's not just, oh, we found this, okay, done, bye. No, okay, how was that for you? Was that helpful? Sometimes our advocates actually sit in courtrooms with survivors, right? Just to make sure that they don't feel alone in going with this really vulnerable and scary process. So those are direct services, and they're called direct services because they're directly intervening and assisting survivors. Another thing that I love about our agency is all of our services are free. So including the hotline, of course, but if you want a therapist or an advocate, let's get you connected to an advocate to see what you need. And that whole process is free. Therapy is free. So you would just have to inquire about it, and an advocate can assist you with that. The next component is outreach. So outreach, of course, is really associated with like the marketing, getting things out there, printing materials, doing tabling, showing up at events. But what is so amazing about our outreach team is that they have that whole component of literal outreach, ensuring that the community knows that we're here, right? That marketing piece. But they also assist with the volunteers, managing volunteers, and any volunteering advocates from the community that want to help with our agency. ERAs, which are ER advocates. So let's say someone has experienced a sexual violence situation and they want to go be seen by a forensic nurse. You're in the hospital and you don't want to be by yourself. The forensic nurse will immediately call us and say, hey, we need an ERA here. So in that way, this person doesn't feel alone. So literally someone will show up and assist you however you need, whether that means holding your hand, whether that means distracting you and asking how your hair care routine is going, whether that means giving you a teddy bear or a snack, you know, whatever that means. But that is the ERA's role, is to be there for the survivor in that world. So outreach oversees all of the volunteers that do that, as well as us as a staff who do that and are in relationship with the UVA emergency room. And then lastly, going back to that hotline, they also oversee the hotline logistics. So who's on hotline, who's going to answer, the hotline training, which I think is like 40 hours or something really extensive to ensure that people are knowledgeable in how to be trauma informed and pick up the phone and assist the person on the other line. Again, our hotline is 25-8. You can call 3 a.m. Christmas morning. It does not matter. Someone is going to answer. There are no wait times because it is a local hotline. And in that, if you need a distraction, again, just tell me how pretty the sky is today because I'm really overwhelmed, whether it's emotional grounding, whether it's trying to get connected to a resource, someone is always there. And so I love, love, love the resources that we provide because again, it's very client-centered and client-focused. The last little bit that I do have on here is, or don't have on here, is our admin coordinator and just the administration that happens behind the scenes. She is amazing and she just makes sure that we are getting all of the other things done and making sure paperwork's done, making sure that we're okay as employees, and in collaboration with our director, she does an amazing job as administration. And then of course there's prevention. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and switch the slides so I can share a little bit more about our prevention team. And before actually I do that, are there any questions before I start really honing in on prevention and what that looks like, as far as Sarah as an agency or any other department? Any questions thus far? No? Awesome.
I was actually kind of curious of like how big the organization itself is and like how many different therapists or advocates you have.
That is a phenomenal question. So we are a smaller nonprofit. We have approximately, don't quote me on this, but approximately like 12, give or take, employees here. So it is on the smaller side. And because of that, you could imagine there are wait lists when it comes to therapy, but that doesn't mean that we are lacking in compassion. We're not lacking in efforts in ensuring that people feel heard and listened to and feel safe. But yeah, so it's approximately 12 of us in total at the agency. Really good question. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and open. Oh, just kidding, I don't have it. So what I'm gonna do is instead from current slide. Oh, just kidding. I'm sorry, technology. Am I right? You would think I'd get used to it by now, but I have not. Alrighty. So I want to ask you all, gonna tease your brains a little bit. What is the difference between awareness versus direct services? We just talked about it. So advocacy, therapy, things directly with survivors versus prevention. What are the differences between the three? And if you don't know, it's okay, but give like wild guesses. It's a learning moment. I want to hear from you.
I would say that awareness is just like the fact that people know that you all exist and know that the organization is there and that it can assist you in times of need. And then direct services would be the actual therapy and the advocation that you just talked about in the last slideshow. And then I would think that prevention would be the actions that are taken after to make sure that that history or the problems that are occurring don't continue in the future.
Harrison, you have such good, you've done this before. You know who we are. Those were really great descriptions. There are little tweaks that I would do to some of them, but you're pretty darn close. Awesome. So I'll actually move forward with that because that's a great transition. So awareness is exactly like the example that Harrison just shared is exactly that. Like literally here, as it says, the state of being conscious of something. knowing that something's happening, right? Knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. So like Harrison said, just knowing that we exist, right? But another crucial example that I like to like pick on a little bit is, especially when y'all are in college, or even, I guess, even in schools now, like when you have those tablings during lunch, or when you're down the road in college, if you decide to go to college and see a tabling out like on campus somewhere, and they're saying, you know, oh, dating violence is severe. Look at this statistic. Look at this rate of dating violence that's happening. Like, did you know this? Like this is a fun fact like about dating violence, and this is why you should get involved. That is not prevention. And that is not direct services. That is awareness. And the reason why it's awareness is because the whole objective of that is just making sure people are aware that there's a problem. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that once someone knows the harsh reality that domestic violence is a terrible epidemic across this country, that doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it, right? That also doesn't catalyze anything else to happen. It's just like, oh, that sucks, right? Now, will that ignite a fire in somebody and made that cause like a domino effect in some way? Sure. But we can't guarantee that, right? And so because of that, things like that, when you repost things on Instagram, when you screenshot things and post them like from a Reddit post or something, or stories or share narratives, all of that stuff, that is more on the awareness side, because you're just letting people know what's going on. So with that, and I'm not here to undermine awareness at all, it's extremely important. In order to address a problem or fix a problem or lessen a problem, you need to understand that there's a problem. I can't go into a school and say, hey, let's do some sexual violence prevention efforts if everyone there or majority of the people there are like, that doesn't exist here. When in reality, it probably does. So awareness is a crucial first step, but it needs to be understood that that's a first step. And so direct services, again, services that directly affect the person or persons impacted by an event. We know this, right? So therapy, advocacy, even like financial help or assistance, shelters, things of that nature, directly assisting those who are harmed. Prevention. So I start with the in medicine definition, because I think it's so clear and an easy translatable way to talk about prevention for those to where this is a new concept. So in medicine, right, it's any action taken to decrease the chance of getting a disease or condition, right? So taking a vaccination or taking a shot or like putting on a daily cream or like something in order to ensure that this thing doesn't happen to you, right? Now, does that mean that it's happened already? Not necessarily, but we're doing it to make sure that it doesn't happen in the first place or that it doesn't happen again. Now, taking that same thought and principle, translating that to a community lens, right? So what actions are being taken to decrease the chance of violence happening? What are you doing to be proactive to ensure that people feel safe emotionally and physically and are safe emotionally and physically? And that's a loaded question. I know some of us are probably like, well, what the heck? How would I know what to do if it hasn't happened yet? Right? And that's normal because as a society, we've made that normal, right? I honestly don't think we talk about prevention enough because we don't know things like protective factors and risk factors, things that sort of kind of outline a framework to ensure that, hey, we can actually be more empathetic. Hey, actually, we can actually, ensure that body positivity can be something that we can talk about in middle school or high school. So then when you go off to college and start doing your own thing, you have that self-esteem in there to where it's a little bit less likely to, fall into a harmful pattern. So with that, the action of stopping something from happening or arising, it's all the same, right? And so prevention, it's so much more than just doing a tabling at lunch. Prevention is so much more than just talking to a friend who might be getting hurt at home. It's literally asking the question, what's next? What are we doing? What are we doing now in this moment? And that's why, again, just to highlight why active listening is so important in my role, because unless I know what's relevant to you all as teens, anything I say is not going to matter. If you don't see yourselves in the scenarios that I'm talking about, if you don't see yourselves actually standing up and like checking in on a friend who might be getting hurt, if you don't see yourselves being able to talk to a trusted adult or know a trusted adult, how can I encourage you to do that? I can't. And so I love my job so much because it starts with relationship building. It starts with talking. It starts with asking the question, what are y'all seeing? What are y'all seeing in your school or in your community that's of concern to you? What do you think is contributing to, feeling exhausted in class or feeling objectified in school? Why do you think it's okay for that person to touch you in the middle of class? Why do you think that that's been seen as okay for this long? Why haven't you gone to somebody? And me asking all these questions aren't from a place of judgment. It's literal curiosity. And it's amazing, again, what comes out of that, because students will tell me, I haven't told anybody because I feel like I can't trust anybody. If I go to my counselor or my principal or like somebody or a teacher or whoever, I feel like I'm just going to get in trouble. Or I can't tell my parents because today my parents told me that I had to wear a certain thing, and now like I'm scared that if I say that this happened to me that they're not going to believe me. Or I can't tell my friends because the other day like they said how much they like this person, and now like I feel like they're not going to believe me because they like this person a lot. Like, and those are just a minute, like super small amount of examples that might be possible to somebody, right? And so I love my job so much because, again, it's putting youth voices at the forefront and the community's voice at the forefront, and not me just checking off the boxes. It's like, okay, what's happening? And now how can we stop this? And it's so great. And I love it so much. And so with that, I know I only have about 30 minutes left. I could talk about, I really want to like gauge, I guess, the space and like figure out what y'all want to talk about. I can talk about more about prevention strategy, like the science behind it, what that looks like how we go about doing prevention. I can talk about bystander intervention and how, if it's done right, because it can be done wrong, but if it's done right and intentionally, that is prevention. We can probably watch some what would you do videos and like do an activity together. Or if y'all have questions and just want to talk, like where are we at? What do y'all want to do? What do y'all want to talk about?
I liked the idea of talking about bystander intervention. Could we touch on that? Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Harrison, what about you? Because if you have a different interest, I want to make time for it.
I agree with the bystander intervention. I think that would be interesting.
Oh, are y'all just saying that because I'm the bystander empowerment specialist? Are y'all just trying to, be nice to like what I do? Oh, well, yes, absolutely. Let's talk about it. Okay, let's do it. Bystander intervention. And let's move this. All right. So forgive me, as obviously this PowerPoint slide was created for another high school presentation that was only like a 2-part series. So if I skip some slides, forgive me. I wish I could go through everything, but I don't have time. I actually do like 6-hour trainings on this. So I wish I had the time, but I'm going to try my best to be condensed. So bystander intervention. First things first, big elephant in the room. What is it? Y'all tell me what you think it is, or what you know it is. I don't know. What is it? And it's okay if you're wrong, I promise. It's also to gauge like where we're at with this too.
My idea of bystander intervention is when someone that I guess isn't directly involved in the situation kind of stands up in some way to help prevent it in a way or put a stop to it at the moment.
Ooh, I like that. I like that definition. Nicole, what about you? Do you have any additional thoughts or are you in agreement with that? How are you feeling about that definition?
I think I'm in agreement. I've always kind of thought of it as somebody who's kind of outside of the situation, but is seeing what's happening and wants to help out the person who needs help.
Yeah, exactly. Now I want to expand that a little bit because Harrison and Nicole, y'all are on the money with it. Expand it a little bit. Harrison, you use the term like stand up for the person. And Nicole, you said like help out the person in some way. What could that look like? What does that look like?
I think it could be in many different forms. It could be like physically standing up to the person that is in power and abusing their power in the situation. Or it also could be like a less direct version where it's more just pulling away the person that's being harmed in like a not obvious way, if that makes sense.
Yes. Have y'all, I feel like y'all are here to steal my job because that is literally all I'm here to talk about. Yes, 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 yes. And I love that you bring in the word power because that is such a strong, I mean, again, I could go on for another 6 hours about power dynamics and how that's a huge, huge thing, and not just sexual violence, but bystander intervention and the barriers that come up with that. So on the money, amazing. So in an effort to try not to be redundant, I'm going to try my best to go through this and y'all tell me and interrupt me if there are any questions along the way. So in my job, I talk about different power imbalances, but really with bystander intervention, what comes up a lot for teens specifically are harassment, really specifically sexual harassment, but of course that can also include other harassments like against ability, racial harassment, against sex, class, any harassment against any part of somebody's identity. We also talk a lot about child abuse, and teens tend to dive in a lot with that because, of course, again, power dynamics. Usually with child abuse, it's an adult, not usually, it is an adult and a child. Well, I'm also a teen and a child. So what can I do if it's the adult causing harm? And that is such a wonderful discussion that I'll hopefully, talk a little bit more about down the line. But just know that that's a reality and it doesn't go unnoticed in this conversation. Same thing with sexual assault, and then same with racial discrimination and how that comes up and what that looks like. And sometimes, unfortunately, due to the dynamics of our nation, racial discrimination sometimes overlaps with religious discrimination, right? Just because someone looks a certain way or wears a headdress or hijab, that's immediately thinking of a particular race and a particular stereotype. And so again, I could dive in to that for another 6 hours, but just know again, in that conversation, it doesn't go unnoticed. And so some statistics, again, this is the awareness piece, right? We first have to realize that there's a problem. 1 in 4 children experience child maltreatment, right? That's 25%. Or if you're a visual person, if you're at a playground and you see a bunch of kids, randomly group up 4 and pick 1, chances are, due to statistics, that child will experience some sort of maltreatment. And maltreatment means that it incorporates abuse, but not just abuse, even things that are borderline or in that gray area of, they didn't actually hit them, but they threatened them, or things like that, to where it's more manipulative or emotional. Just the fact that their safety is not a priority. That's what maltreatment means. More than 10% of Americans are sexually assaulted during high school. And I specifically use this graphic because 10% is 1 person in every 10. I mean, y'all are in high school. There's so many students there. Walking down a hallway, choosing 1 person out of every 10, that's a lot of kids. And then lastly, 76% of African and Asian Americans experience discrimination. 58% of Hispanic people experience discrimination. And I'll address the fact that I actually need to fact check this last one because 67% of white people never experience discrimination. But with these 3 discrimination facts, I failed to look up further on what discrimination occurred because arguably white people can't really experience racial discrimination, but they can experience discrimination in other ways. And so I do need to fact check this. So feel free to fact check me or do further research on it. Nonetheless, they are higher numbers for people of color. And that's the main point to take away from this. So there's a problem. There's a problem. This is national data. So even, microscoping it to a smaller scale at your own communities, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so with that, oh gosh, sorry, I can't see what this is. I want to ask y'all another question as a transition statement. It's going to seem like super abrupt, but I promise there's a connection. Y'all know, like when things are on trend or like trending on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or whatever the cool kids are on nowadays. How do trends start? How does that happen? How does something go viral?
I would say that trends typically start when someone that is maybe more powerful or more popular than others does something first, so then others kind of look at it as a good thing that they should be doing too.
I like that. So you're saying more of that social influence. Like I'm the cool kid of my group, so I do something and thus everybody else is going to see it as cool, so they're going to do it too. Like, is that right?
Yes, and also in the way that, like, I guess really famous people can start trends by simply doing something because everyone else sees it.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal observation. Yes. What else? Because I'm sure, like, have y'all ever like ran something, like saw something across your feed and you have no idea who the person is? How does that something get on your feed? How does it go viral enough to go across the internet?
I feel like trends, they kind of start with, I feel like a lot of times it's someone who has this idea that's unlike the rest. It's kind of creative, sometimes not in the best way. Like trends can also be dangerous. And so they will go viral because they're like special, but not always in the best way.
Yes. So I love what you're hitting on, Nicole, because trends, they can be fun, they can be great, they can be creative, but trends can also be really harmful depending on what it is. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let me ask y'all, if I were to post a picture of my cat Mittens and a couple of my friends like it, does that mean it's viral? And I can't see your faces, so I can't tell if you're like, if you're responding, but does that mean it's viral if just a couple of my friends likes my picture of my cat?
I would say that it's maybe viral within your friends, but not viral in like the world community, maybe.
Okay. Nicole, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I think your friends would find it really cute, and I would too. I would love to see your cat, but maybe not in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. And so what would make it viral? Like, what would need to happen to make it viral? Don't think too hard. Y'all are very analytical thinkers and I love it, but don't think too hard.
I think just more people would have to see it. Yeah.
And like it, right? And actually take action and be like, oh, I like this. Exactly. Okay, so we touched on amazing points. Social influence, the fact that trends can be also negative, and the power of like a following almost. Like the more people that like something or see something, the more of a chance that it's going to be viral. Those 3 things that y'all mentioned, right? I guided you there, but you told me the answers on why bystander intervention is even a thing. First things first, social influence. If I'm in a group of friends, right, and a friend of mine starts saying something super like weird and awkward and inappropriate and like creepy about their partner. And I'm like, yo, like, why would you say that? Like, that's really weird. Like, don't do that. Chances are, since that's my friend, I would think my friend would listen to me, right? As opposed to a stranger. That's social influence. If I know this person, chances are they're going to listen to me. And same thing in the same social influence with as it interlocks with power dynamics. If there's that one cool kid, I don't know. I think I went to a school once and they're like, yearbook is where all the cool kids are. Like if you're in yearbook, like you're immediately popular. I would have never thought that. And so they told me if I wanted anything to happen, if I wanted a message to go across the school, I need to talk to yearbook. That is social influence. The fact that people know yearbook as having that influence and telling people what's cool and what's not, that is an influence. And like you mentioned, Harrison, like, oh, it might be viral in your friends, but maybe not the greater community. Nonetheless, influence is influence. It still matters if it's just within your group of 2 or 4 friends or 15 friends, whatever your social group is. That matters just as much as reaching a whole entire community of people. And the whole reason in that is the third point. I'm going to go back to Nicole's point, but the third point of the more people that do it, the more chances that it's going to be trendy, right? So I say that because let's say I'm wearing like a super bright, gaudy, orange, ugly scarf at the downtown mall. And I'm walking and I think, oh, I look so great. I'm so excited. This scarf, it costs so much money. Like, I think it looks great on me. And all of a sudden, this person just scoffs at me down on the downtown. I'm like, oh. And then I walk a little bit further and this other person, they start staring at me like this. And they're like, oh. And then all of a sudden, this other person like starts whispering to this person next to them and like staring at me. How do you think I'm going to feel after that? Am I going to feel like super confident in this scarf? No, like I'm getting the message from several people I don't know, like, oh, maybe this wasn't a good match to my outfit today, right? There's power in numbers. And so in that same vein, like connecting to the last point, if it's just your friends and you're like, don't talk about your partner like that, and your friend learns, hey, it's not cool to do that. Once that friend goes to another community or back at home and talks to their little brother or goes into college and makes new friends or goes to their workplace and start talking to their colleagues, and somebody else starts talking negatively about their partner in that way to where it's harmful, hey, dude, why are you talking about them like that? That's not cool. That's how change happens. And so to that last point, and what's so important about bystander intervention is what Nicole said. This happens with the good just as much as it does with the bad. And what I mean by that is that that's why it's so important to call things out when they happen. Because the second that somebody thinks that it's okay or thinks I can say this because no one's going to say anything otherwise, you're allowing that to continue for that same reason, right? Because then if they think it's okay saying something really harmful or inappropriate or disturbing about their partner, and I'm like, that's just how they are. Or, you know, they were wearing that the other day. Or, you know, I don't really know how to do this, and I don't think it's too much of an issue, you know, it's whatever. Someone else will do it. Same thing is probably going to happen. Go back to their family, their workplace, college, wherever, and they're also going to allow that thing to happen. And so that's also why empowerment is so important. Efficacy is so important. Feeling like you have the confidence in doing something and can do something is so important. Sharing resources is so important because you can always do something to stop that from happening. Thus why bystander intervention, if done right, can be a prevention strategy. Because the second that person realizes, hey, I shouldn't be talking about somebody like this, or hey, maybe I should wait until they're sober to do something with this person, or maybe I should ask them before I hug them, or, you know, buy them another drink, or etc. Like, that literally causes a whole chain reaction. So yeah. So that is bystander intervention. And there's so many things I could talk about. So many things. But I think that's ultimately where I'm at. I guess the last thing that I want to share with y'all are the 3Ds for the sake of just being solution focused. So again, there's always something that you can do, right? Maybe I'm shy as heck. Maybe I'm not the person to go directly up to that person and be like, hey, dude, stop what you're doing. Like, realistically, like, we can't do that every single time, right? Especially maybe I don't know this person and they're bigger than me and I'm scared for my own safety. All of that is reasonable. And so the 3Ds are 3 options that you can do at any time, no matter what your barriers are, right? So direct is directly going up to that person and saying, hey, what you said was not cool. Don't do that. Or however you phrase it, hey, that wasn't nice. Or, hey, we don't talk like that. Or whatever the case, right? Direct is also directly going up to the person being harmed. So let's say I hear a racial slur being yelled down the hallway. Maybe I don't know the person who said it, but I know who it was directed to. So going up to that person and saying, hey, are you okay? That wasn't cool. Like, do you want to walk to the counselors together, or do you want to walk to class together? And if they shrug it off, okay. But at least you checked in to say whatever was said was not okay, right? That's that whole chain reaction again. Delegate is getting somebody else to take action. So whether that's a teacher, an adult, a parent, but again, on the realistic standpoint, sometimes we're scared to go to adults, right? And I don't know about y'all, but my mom raised me in saying, I just want to make sure that you're safe. I don't care if you talk to me. I don't care if you talk to your Aunt Tracy. I don't care if you talk to your dad, your little sister, whoever, but my main goal is that you're safe. And that's sort of kind of where I'm at with this, right? So if for some reason you don't feel comfortable going to an adult at your school, or a parent, or someone with the city of Charlottesville, or a mentor, or something of that nature, there are so many hotlines here in Charlottesville. Call a hotline. Again, our Sarah hotline, 434-977-7273. Someone is always there to talk to. Go to a friend. Maybe your friend is the person that's super outspoken and ready to get into somebody's face and be like, hey, do you mind telling them to stop? Because it's really making me uncomfortable. And your friend going up to the person and saying, hey, stop what you're doing. That's really weird, right? It doesn't always have to be an adult, and that is okay. And again, hotlines, and of course 911 in a life-threatening emergency. But there is always somebody that you can go to. And lastly, distract. Distract can get really fun because it's literally taking attention away from the situation at hand. So let's say my friend is talking like really weirdly about her girlfriend, and then I interrupt her and say, did you not see Rihanna's Fenty show last night? Like, why are you talking about that? Like, can we talk about more important things? Like, can we talk about how Rihanna is about to have a baby? Like, that is so amazing. Like, can we talk about something else? Or let's say you're in class and there are 2 students talking to each other really like inappropriately, or like really like so much so to where it's overwhelming. Maybe raising your hand and being like, hey, can we talk about y equals mx plus b? Because I'm not trying to fail this class. Right? One of my favorite examples is my supervisor. She had somebody tell her that he was in college. He just joined a fraternity. And he shared this story that he just joined this fraternity and his older fraternity brother was pretty much dragging a girl up the stairs, very drunk. She was very obviously drunk. He was scared because his barrier was, I just joined this fraternity. This is my older frat brother. What the heck do I do? Like, I cannot have a heart-to-heart with this guy. Like, this is not, what do I do? So what he does is he yells, hey, dude, your car's getting towed. He drops everything, including the girl, right? Drops everything, runs out and goes and sees if his car is getting towed. And as soon as he runs out, he goes up to this girl's friends and says, hey, she's not okay. Can I get y'all a ride home? Right? Where's the taxi at? Are y'all getting an Uber? How are you getting home? And so what I love about that story is there was a very obvious distract, which is sort of hilarious and really relevant to UVA because like towing, they do not play like at all. Including at JMU where I went, they do not play at all with towing. So it's a very real distraction that could cause someone to like say, oh my gosh. But also they didn't delegate, right? Like, this is your friend. Can you please make sure that she's safe? And can you please make sure she gets home okay? I'll even pay for the transportation for you. And so, as you can see, you can do these independently. You can do a mix of them. But no matter your barrier, you have something. And you can always do something. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be super small. And in fact, the smaller things matter because you're preventing the bigger things. Like you're preventing the bigger things from happening. You're preventing that escalation. So yeah, that is bystander intervention. And y'all were right. Bystander is somebody who sees or hears something happening before, during, or after it happens. Intervention is essentially asking the question, what do I do about it? Do I do anything at all? If not, why? If so, what? And so with that, I should have led with that, but you guys already had that definition ready. With 5 minutes to spare, how are we feeling? So many questions, or so much talking on my end. My jaw hurts. So are there any questions or anything else that I can talk about? Again, 5 minutes left. I want to respect y'all's time. How are we feeling? Any questions? Anything else? Harrison, I can't tell if you're ready to talk or if you're thinking.
I was thinking if I had a question or not.
Oh, okay. No pressure, and it's okay. I'll also give y'all my email, so y'all can always email me if any questions pop up. Something about our prevention team is not only do we collaborate with schools for a bystander intervention curriculum, we also do work with local restaurants in helping them implement a reporting system that's like super easy for servers to say, hey, this person's making me uncomfortable, do something about it. If you've ever had a server job, it gets really hard to do that. So we help local restaurants implement that. We also have a parent council. So if you have a parent that's interested in like learning about stuff like how to talk to your teens about consent or, other parent like things. I'm not a parent, so I don't know. But I just have my cat Mittens, as I've mentioned. But there is a parent council. And there's also a 10-men program. So influential men around the city and the service area have a cohort of 10, and they work together to do a project to learn more about violence and abuse and how to go back to their communities to promote prevention. And I feel like, coaching boys into men, which is a really awesome curriculum where it's pretty much train the trainer. So training coaches to have really awesome and intentional conversations with their sports teams. So around consent, respect, how to talk about women without like objectifying them, like really dismantling and like combating that talk, like locker room talk that people insinuate. So those are the programs that we have.
What an incredible asset to our community. It's really great that you were able to like squeeze in all of that information in a short time period.
My face getting red.
But also like I really enjoyed the part about the 3Ds because it does give some options for Harris and Nicole to kind of hold on to share with their friends and colleagues and associates and sort of feel empowered to do something. I really like no matter what your barrier is, you have a choice, and here are some of the choices that you have to think through. So I really appreciated that piece. I think it'll be interesting to hear from Nicole and Harrison and the other members of Youth Council when we get back together on May 12th to sort of see how we're going to sort of take all these incredible presentations that we've had to sort of elevate what's important for teens. So I really appreciate you providing like the teen slant to your information as well. It's really helpful.
Of course. And if I can be like excruciatingly honest, I like teens more than I do adults. So y'all
I'm
have
a
a
big fan
special
of
place.
teens as well.
Yes, like y'all ask questions, y'all are involved and engaged and great. And I just love the Charlottesville teen community so much. Y'all actually helped really my decision to go back to school and pursue a master's to eventually help youth of color. And so Charlottesville youth will always have a special place in my heart. And thank y'all again for all that you do on the youth council and stepping up to better the community. I mean, that means a lot. And so with that, I guess, thank y'all so much for having me. If y'all ever need any other support, anything else I can do, provide, anything, just let me know, reach out. Again, you have my email now. And it was
I'll
such a pleasure.
include it in the notes as well. And as well as
Wonderful.
I'll also put the hotline number in the notes so that folks have that.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend, and good luck with everything. Y'all got this.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
David.
much.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Cole and Harrison, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Feel free to email me if you need anything from me between now and then, okay?
Thank you.
All right, y'all take
Thank
care.
you.
Good evening. Thanks, Remy.